Hey y'all, so for this video I took a time lapse of me sewing the garment together. I did stop about halfway through because I figured that it was enough footage. In this shot you'll see me sewing the two front sides together. I'm using a running stitch, so I will be putting in a shot of it up close in a little bit so that you can see what the technique was used. So I'm just going to use this time to kind of talk a little bit about the history of the surcoat. So the earliest example of a surcoat is from the 12th century, but it didn't really reach its height of popularity until the 13th and 14th centuries. It was worn by both men and women. In men, it was usually a tunic length and it was worn over armor, and for women it was usually much longer and flowy and touched the ground, which ultimately led to its decrease in popularity in the 15th century because it wasn't exactly practical. It was also worn by knights, and when they were on the battlefield, they used them to identify who was who, because a lot of times the armor would be covering their face, and so they would use the surcoat and have their coat of arms stitched onto it, so that way they could tell who was on their side and who wasn't. The surcoat also led to a piece of armor called the Code of Plaits in the 13th century, which is basically just a surcoat with a bunch of metal plates sewn on it. Eventually, the surcoat was replaced by I believe it's called a jupon I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and it was used on the battlefield in the 15th century. So this is just a closer up shot of the running stitch. It's simply passing the needle back and forth through both sides of the fabric. So a little bit about the history of the fashions regarding the surcoat. By the 14th century, the armholes were generally open all the way to the waist. Now, I did not do this on my garment, so mine probably most closely resembles a 13th century surcoat. The neck and armholes were also usually lined with fur or embroidery. Now, I counted my hem stitch as embroidery, though generally it would be a lot more elaborate than that, but I am not great at embroidering because I haven't done it in a few years, and by a few years I mean since I was probably in junior high, so it's been a while. It's definitely been a while. But my hem stitch shows through on both sides, and I thought that it gave it kind of a cool look. It gives it a little bit more of a texture, so I'll be showing you a little closer up of what that looks like. So in order to do a hem stitch, what I did was I rolled the fabric over to the wrong side, and then I would pass the needle through a single layer of fabric when going through to the back side, and when I would bring it up, I would bring it through all layers of the fabric, and so you'll see it gets that diagonal stitch going and it brings it all together. And you can see a little bit sometimes when my hand isn't blocking it what it looks like on the right side if you look at the right side of the screen. I'll be showing a little bit more of the detailing in the final video where I show you what the garment finished actually looks like and how it functions. I'm really excited with the way it turned out. So yeah, that's about it for what I have for y'all for this video, so you can just sit back, relax, and watch the rest of the stitching. If not, you know, it is what it is. That's okay, I'm just rambling at this point. I'll see y'all later.